You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. I'm Mark Hunter. And of course, you know what it is. That means it's the Sales Hunter podcast. I already said that, right? Hey, today we have Shari Levitin. Now, Shari is the founder of the Levitin Group. She has helped create over $1 billion in increased revenue for companies in over 40 countries. Shari's the best-selling author of Heart and Sell, 10 universal truths every salesperson needs to know. She's also a contributor to Forbes, CEO Magazine, Quotable, Inc. Magazine, and Huffington Post. We're going to be right back in just a moment to talk about key to achieving success in sales with Shari Levitin.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
When it comes to closing deals, Calendly knows how important maintaining momentum is for your sales team. Calendly provides the automation you need to connect with your best leads faster and schedule every meeting through your sales cycle. Prevent scheduling delays that stall deals and let your team focus on what they do best, driving revenue. Request your demo of Calendly today. Okay, and with that, hey, let's get Shari Levitin in the studio. Shari, welcome.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It is great to have you. Hey, we are talking about the key to achieving success. And of course, you continue to have it as you talk with companies. And hey, I heard you got like a reality TV show coming out.
Yes, I thought it was a joke at first, but think Shark Tank with heart, and I'm a sales coach. And I'm helping entrepreneurs before they go in front of the sharks, and it's all on TV. It's on Fox right now. The neatest thing about the show, though, I've got to tell you, is that unlike Shark Tank, anybody can invest. So the way it works out is that anybody watching the show can invest $100, $500. So you don't have to be wealthy to be an investor on a startup product. So yeah, super fun. It's running now. I've only seen 3 of the episodes myself. But it was a really delightful experience.
Well, that's neat. And it just proves the quality of the work you provide. So let's talk about what's been your key to achieving success. What has allowed you to stand out and stand apart from everyone else?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I would say you had a lot to do with it, and many people like you had a lot to do with it. I was for 20 years, I started my training company in 97, but I was really in a single vertical for about 15, 18 years, and we dominated that vertical. And then once I wrote the book and realized I really wanted to spread my wings and go into different industries I really believe in, tech, healthcare, education. Really, it was a matter of finding mentors and listening and learning from them. And instead of just going for a run or a walk and listening to music, I would listen to podcasts and learn and grow and devour everything I could and network with people that were where I wanted to be and learn to be vulnerable and say, I don't know how to do this. I need help with that. How do you do this? And so I think that would be number one. I would say number two, video was huge for us. And it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I realized that I could get my name out there and my brand out there and have customers come to us that were our types of customers without doing a ton of cold calls if I gave away content for free and not look for anything in return. And I was nervous at first, but it worked. So today we put out a video every single day on 4 social platforms, and 100% of our revenue comes from inbound leads and referrals, which has been absolutely wonderful.
Wow. Okay. Now you just said a lot right there, and I want to back up the bus. If you're driving down I-5 north of Sacramento, don't stop, keep driving forward, wait till you hit an off ramp and pull into McDonald's. Anyway, here's the deal. You shared several key things there. One, listening to other people, getting mentors. That's really essential for anybody in sales. And you made the comment that you had been successful in sales, and when you were making this transition to building your business, but you probably had mentors way back at the beginning of your sales career, right?
Yeah, I've always found great mentors. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do. And you have different mentors for different things. I think a lot of times people think, well, I need one who's going to teach me everything. I mean, right now I have 2 speaking coaches, even though I'm, a booked keynote speaker for the next several months. I have keynote mentors. I have marketing mentors. I have morality mentors. I have people where I say, what is the right thing to do here? Our core value here is integrity, but it's not black and white. What would you do if you were me? So you've got your spiritual mentors. And I do think that is the key to not just success in sales, but a successful, well-lived life.
Hey, I love what you're talking there because you're saying about having multiple mentors, multiple coaches. And of course, I always like to use Tom Brady as an example. He has multiple coaches. He's the greatest of all time, but he has so many different coaches that he works with.
Yeah.
And you're saying the same thing. I love that. You also made the comment that you were in kind of one vertical. And it's something that I've talked about, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. But then you said you branched out into other verticals. When we as a salesperson get into trouble by having too many verticals or too many ideal customer profiles?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I tell a story. I remember one of my favorite places in the world to vacation is Kauai. So for those of you who have been to the North Shore of Kauai, this is like my happy place of the world. And whenever we go to Kauai, we go to my favorite place on Kauai, which is the taco trucks in Kapa'a. And if you go there, there's like, you're smiling, you've been there yet. Like there's one taco truck that has the best ahi tacos you have ever had. And they're $8. And there's usually like a line of 15 people because they're so darn good. Well, I'd gone there every year. The next year I came back and that same taco truck was not only offering tacos, but they were offering Thai food. They were offering pizza. They were offering like, you name it, man, hot dogs. Like they didn't want to miss anything. Well, all of a sudden, it took them 45 minutes to come up with the taco because they were trying to do all of these other things. And 6 months later, they went out of business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was fascinating. And the thing is that you can learn from the taco truck that you can't be all things to all people. So yes, you do need to get very clear about what industries you serve, why you serve them for a million reasons. Now, yes, when I left a vertical and went into different verticals, we were still very targeted, but we aligned based on values and what matters to us and what's important. And I want to work in industries and do keynotes and do training with companies that align with my values. It doesn't mean if they don't, they're bad values. It's just that I know what we're passionate about and where we want to make a difference and what touches our soul. And everybody in our company, my employees, we hire based on values, not just based on competence. And that has made all the difference for us.
I love what you're saying there because you're saying, so number one, watch the taco truck. Watch the taco truck. No, okay. Now, here's something fascinating here. You branched into other verticals, but you knew you had a lane you could play there because of your values, because of everything that you offer them. Is there a time when salespeople can begin to understand that they have that opportunity? Or, because so many times what I see happening is salespeople will get into another vertical when suddenly they have a customer that calls. But I bet you've had customers call you in verticals you don't want to service, right?
Yeah, it definitely, because we don't believe in what they're doing. It's just not aligned, or we don't believe with how they treat their employees. We actually had a customer recently, big company, Fortune 500 company, and we worked with them and we just realized at the end of the engagement that our values just weren't aligned. And it wasn't that they were bad and we were good, or that, we were bad and they were good. There was just a misalignment. And you need to know that, you need to get to that point. I think with sellers, what's important is that I will say that you'll see patterns. You can always learn. And if you're hiring salespeople, you can always learn another product. So if I'm selling cars, I can even learn a software. If I'm learning, CRM software and I'm going to selling video software, whatever the case may be, I believe that smart sellers can learn another product. But the skills that you have is what's most important. The skills of how do you prospect? How do you do a discovery? How do you add value? And then, of course, there's the emotional intelligence skills. Are you kind? Do you have empathy? Are you reliable? Do you follow through? So I do think you can switch verticals and switch companies, so long as you realize you need to have that growth mindset to learn that new industry, learn the new lingo. And to me, that's a lot easier than learning all of the other skills that go along with selling.
Interesting. So really, you got to make sure that there's that fit there before you go. But walking away from a Fortune 500 company, was that hard to do?
No.
Oh, boom. I love it. I love that answer. I love that answer.
It just wasn't a fit. Again, it didn't work. It wasn't a fit. And look, if you've got a pipeline and you're doing good work, then you work with the customers you want to work for. Now, I know that we're in a good position that way, but it also took a lot of time. And it took a lot of putting video out there and giving and not asking for anything in return, to say, well, you know what, that's not our ideal customer, but A, B, and C are. So let's do more with A, B, and C. And that's going to be a better fit for us.
But what you've shared is you had the confidence to know that your existing book of business, your existing pipeline are all good. And you don't need to sit here and try to jeopardize everything you've done just for the sake of a new customer. And that brings up a great example, because I see so many times sellers will suddenly take on another piece of business because, oh, well, my pipeline's empty. I got to do it. But you're doing this from a position of abundance because your pipeline's so full. You've got the opportunities. You've worked your process and have worked it well. Is that correct?
Yeah. And it's the same for selling, right? Like, if you think about it, one of the things that great sellers do is they ask the customer, what's your criteria for bringing in a new vendor? Or what's your criteria for bringing in an outside resource? We need to ask those types of questions. Well, you need to have your criteria too, because not all business is good business. And some business takes you down emotionally. And if it saps my emotional energy, and not to mention the emotion of my team, I mean, my team was going crazy, right? It didn't feel good to them. And so if it saps your emotional energy, not all business is created equal. That's all I have to say. And you want to go with those customers that feel good, that give you energy and give you life. And then you'll attract more of the same. We got to maintain as sellers, like we have to maintain our energy. And that is one of the hardest things in the world to do. And, I see a lot of sellers today do the opposite of, they're working too hard, particularly working from home. Sure, you got the lazy salespeople, you got the quiet quitters, but I see the opposite too, where they're not taking that break. They're not going for a walk. They're not feeding their soul. They're not taking time with family. They're not shutting down for Christmas. And if you don't do that, you've got nothing left to give.
Oh, I love what you're saying here, because it is screaming out there that if it's not the right fit, don't do it. And I can't stress that enough. But again, that only comes because you're incredibly confident and you're incredibly competent in what you're doing. Hey, there was something you said early on. You used the word video. You put out a lot of video, and video is without a doubt has moved its way into the mainstream selling process. What are some tips or ideas that you would share with somebody? Hey, I'm a salesperson out there. I'm selling SaaS. I'm selling machines or widgets and selling virtually. What are some tips that you would share with people as to how to use video or when to use video?
Yeah, I mean, it's like adopting any new piece of software. And I also want to say that video is not a panacea. It's the old, you've got to have a good process before you put video on top of that process, because otherwise you're just scaling bad process, right? You're scaling chaos. So you've got to know what your process is. But we use video in every step of the sales process. And if you think about it, and I'm going to tell you just sort of a basic reason why. I've been selling long enough, Mark, and you probably have too, where think back to when you were a kid. And I don't know about you, but I grew up in California. And whenever my grandmother called and I'd be out in the street playing, my mom would go, "It's grandma, long distance," right? Because it was a big deal. And you'd run to get that call from grandma, because you may not remember this, but it was actually $12 a minute back then. And
I remember that. Okay, we just dated ourselves right here, so it's okay.
We totally did. 60s, early 70s, and you would like run as fast as you could. I also remember when I got my first AOL account. Remember it made the noise, like kind of like Rosie and the Jetsons. Remember that like kind of crazy noise that it used to make? And when you got an email on AOL, it was like you would run home to like open your email. Now, anybody who's listening right now, look in your inbox. If you're like most people, you have like 496 unread emails. And if you're like me, you got 4,932, but that's an embarrassing admission. But what I'm saying is video is still novel. And I don't know how long it's going to be novel. You said salespeople are using it. It's still less than 3%. So you want to get ahead of the game. You want to break through inboxes. You use video. Why? Well, it's novel, but also think about it. Think of the old numbers that communication is. This was an old UCLA study that what's old is new again, that communication is 7% the words you use, 38% your tone, and 55% body language. That means when you're sending email, folks, your customer's missing 97% of your communication.
Okay, I want everybody
for a minute. I mean, I want you to think about that. When I use video, I'm creating rapport. That I'm building trust. They see my facial expressions. It's like, how many times have you gotten so angry at somebody, like they send you an email and you misread it, you misinterpret it? That's why we have emojis. Hey, just kidding, wink, wink. But video takes care of that. So that's sort of the why video. The how of video, we could do a whole segment on this, but what I will say, my favorite place to use video is after I've done a discovery call. Because most likely, if I've done a discovery, I am not talking to all the stakeholders, right? For me, there's usually 3 or 4 stakeholders. In a B2B sale, there's 8 to 11. So you're maybe talking to 2 or 3 of them, and you've done this great discovery. You've uncovered the problems, the aspirations, how they do business. That's amazing. And now this person that you did the discovery with has to socialize it with 6 other stakeholders? You got to be kidding me. And now maybe you're one of 3 RFPs. And now the other 2 guys or gals are showing an email. But you know what I'm doing? I'm doing a video follow-up. Who just differentiated themselves? Who just got the attention of the other stakeholders? And by the way, when I follow up with video, it's a step I call information confirmation. We teach it in our workshops. I don't sell. All I do is repeat back what I heard so that the customer feels felt. One of the biggest mistakes salespeople make is premature demonstration syndrome, right? I start selling too soon instead of doing that discovery. So that follow-up video, I'm going to repeat the facts. I'm going to repeat the challenges that I heard. I'm going to repeat their aspirations. I'm going to repeat when we're meeting next. I'm going to thank them for their time. And I'm out in 80 seconds. So that's a quick tip on how you can use video. And by the way, we're talking about asynchronous video right now. I'm not talking about Zoom video. I'm not talking about, which are also important. And that has its own distinctions for how to build trust on Zoom. And it's very, very different than face-to-face. And you've got to know both today. But I am talking about following up with asynchronous video. We happen to use Vidyard. We think they're great. And then you can also track, measure, and monitor who opened it, who shared it. And when you start on a Monday, now all of a sudden I know, oh, of the 20 videos I sent out, 8 people opened them and 6 of them reshared them 10 times. Those are the prospects I'm going after first because they're the most engaged. So it also
wow, you just heard a lot there. We're going to get back to Shari in just a second, but right now we need to thank the great people at Calendly for their sponsorship. If you're ready to get control of your calendar and book more high-value meetings, then it's time to get started with Calendly. The link in the show notes to learn more. Hey, now you mentioned a number of things there. One, the discovery call, and I believe the discovery call is a date. You're trying to figure out if you want to work with these people, just as they're trying to figure out if they want to work with you. You also raise the issue that you start using asynchronous video after the discovery call. So key. I think that's so spot on. And you also raised another point. Only 3% of people right now are using video. And you're right. 10 years from now, it'll be very, very common. But just like when your grandma was calling, what did you do? You ran to that telephone because it was special. It was special.
Even if I lost in hide and go seek, like
Yes.
I ran. It was $12.
Yes. Yes. And it's so key. I mean, you have dropped so many truth bombs, so many sales bombs right here in the last 4 or 5 minutes. It's been incredible. So now let's shift this around a little bit. We'll say that I'm a new salesperson starting out. I want to achieve the same level of success that you, Shari, have been able to achieve. What would you tell them? What would you tell them to do? Where would you tell them to focus their time?
If you're a new salesperson and you're just starting out, again, a lot of things seem simple, but as my mentor said, it's simple, but if you're not doing it, it's advanced. The first thing I would do is figure out what you want and why you want it. Because let me tell you, you're going to face more rejection, more no's, more challenges than you ever dreamed possible. And if you don't have, your why, if you don't know why you want it, you're not going to go through all of that rejection and everything it takes. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to tell you right now, you got to do the work. You're looking for a shortcut. You're looking for a hack. Oh, video will save me, a magic powder that all of a sudden, a magic tool and automation. I'll tell you a quick story, Mark. My mother is 88 years old. She escaped World War II, escaped the Holocaust, came to America poor. At 6 years old, didn't speak the language. And she made a startling discovery. It was called the library. And she could check out 10 books every single week. And she did that. And then she not only taught herself English, she now is a published author of over 40 books. And if you were to ask my mother, from where do you get your inspiration to write the books? She'd just look at you and say, I don't get the inspiration from a mountaintop. It doesn't work like that. You know what I do? Every morning at 6 o'clock, I wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, sit down at my desk and do the work. Sellers, there is no magic pill. You've got to do the work. Look up your customers on LinkedIn before you call them. Don't be lazy. Work deeper, not wider. Do the work of practicing your discovery. Do your pre-call plan. Get a mentor. Practice. I worked every single Sunday of my career. And I had a salesperson who worked for me, and he says, oh, you live to work. I work to live. Well, you know what? Now I work because I want to, not because I have to. It takes discipline. You've got to do the work. So know your why, do the work, find a mentor. And then I would say the third thing is you want to, whenever you're dealing with a customer, again, this just sounds so cliche, but put yourself in the customer's shoes. Stop selling and think, how does this customer want to buy? How can I be a helping brand? How can I teach them how to buy a product like ours and not lead with the product, but figure out what their problems are and help them solve problems rather than pitching products? So
wow. And again, regardless of where you are on the sales train, what Shari just shared with you is absolutely incredible advice. We've got to wrap up the show here in just a second. But hey, before we get to that point, how do people get in touch with you? People say, wow, Shari, because you've got a great book out. And how do people find out about all that stuff?
Well, I mean, the best way is, like I said, we have a video on LinkedIn every single day. So connect with me on LinkedIn for some free training. If you are interested in a keynote or some of our workshops, you can just go to our website, sharilevitin.com, or you can even email me personally, shari@sharilevitin.com.
And the thing you're going to do right now is you're going to hit replay, because you're going to come back and you're going to watch this episode. You're going to listen to this episode again. And with that, we want to say thanks for listening, and thank you, Calendly, for sponsoring today's show and continuing to help sales teams focus on driving revenue, prevent scheduling delays that stall deals, and let your team focus on what they do best, driving. Request your demo of Calendly today. Hey, I do trust the value, content shared, and you'll take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Each week, you get 2 shows. One is short sales insight for me, and the second, an interview with a leading sales expert. Hey, the Sales Hunter Podcast, your answer to cutting-edge sales insights. I'm Mark Hunter. Thanks for listening. Thank Shari for being with us. This is a replay episode. Awesome.
Thank you, Mark.